The session will be moderated by Arfa Sayeda Zehra. Arfa is an eminent professional scholar, literary cricket analyst, educationist, culture expert, gender specialist, human rights activist, and social nationalist. Her achievements are attributed to her skills to articulate her intellect, powered by her conviction, dedication, knowledge, and insight. Among her many achievements, her role as chairperson, National Commission on the Status of Women, and her contribution to promotion of the arts and culture outside. Over to you.
Thank you so very much. Professor Frembgen, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very pleasant duty today. Pleasant because I am sitting next to a person who enriches your life with images and with sensitivities. Basically, a professor of anthropology, and if I can call you an ethnographer also. And he weaves culture through the actors. And one would think that what there would be in 1,000 cups of tea, and how a cup of tea becomes a symbol of culture wherever it is poured down. He has 130 publications to his credit. And if and in English and in German both, and if I really continue to introduce him, I will have a very easy task. The 30 minutes would be over. But I think we should be talking about him and about this book. This book talks about tea. And this tea is known to us in its many hues, and its many colors, its many tastes, its many fragrances. Those hues, those colors, those fragrances are basically fragrances of a mindset, hues of a culture, and color of a style of life. I was amazed to see him sitting in a photograph, sitting in Liari, and sipping his tea with truck drivers. Now you can imagine how authentic this 1,000 cups of teas are. I'm really very, very pleased to be introducing this book to you. And before I say anything, I would like to call him Wasim. His name is Jürgen Wasim Frembgen. When it comes to tea, Wasim comes closer. Whether it's a German word, I don't know, but you and I know it as an Arabic name, and we have a love for Wasim. The beauty of this book is that the narrative paints a picture, and the photographic images augment that picture. Two travel together, step in step, right there. The words are really like different shades of a color, and the photographs speak to you better than any word. So, Mr. Wasim, let me tell you, it's my honor to moderating this 1,000 cups of teas. And it starts from Africa, comes down to South Asia. And then one thing which amazed me, that suddenly it also becomes a Muslim tea. And we have gone so sensitive about Islam that you have to really see what this tea means there. And I'm not going to take the magic out of it. I'll let Wasim speak for that. What would be the best thing as an author, as a creator, this is your brainchild, that you would like to say about this book?
Thank you for your kind introduction. Yes, what would I love to say? It's for me the same as for so many people in this country that I can't survive anymore without tea. While walking as an ethnographer through the villages and cities of Pakistan, I have to do this. Petrol dalna, hum log kehte hai. So it brings me throughout the day because sometimes I eat a little dal somewhere in Liari, but otherwise I drink endless cups of tea. Because for an ethnographer, a tea house is an ideal place to sit, to observe, to get into communication with people. And this is, I think, basically about drinking tea in this part of the world as well as elsewhere. That it has to do, on the one hand, yes, with leisure, with taking a pause, with contemplation and reverie, but we also enter into communication. We start to chat with people. Just the other day, before the festival started, I was sitting at my favorite tea house at Haji Pir Muhammad Road. This is in Baghdadi, facing Shabik Lane, and sitting there with my Afro-Pakistani friends from the Shiri community. And somebody came, and I was so surprised. He greeted everybody with a handshake. Then the person I was talking to, he said, come on, I invite you, we have some cutting chai. And we shared, 3 of us, everybody got a cutting chai. And I saw that also in Mumbai as a fantastic way to establish a friendship, to get to know each other better. And so sitting in a tea shop, you talk to people. Actually, you talk about politics. I mean, in Karachi, it had been, in the olden days, the famous Cafe Grand, I think, on Victoria Road in those days, or Cafe George. We had these tea houses around Burns Road, Pakistan Chowk, and other places. Many of them have gone. So my favorite places are around Lee Market. I found one tea house called Sufi Hotel across Lee Market. Of course, I had to go there. Also, it's a very dirty place. There are others better. But it is to feel the daily pulse of the people in my face, as Americans would say, as a fantastic vantage point. And in Lahore, the writers would sit at the Park Tea House, Saadat Hassan Manto, Faiz Ahmed Faiz, Intizar Hussain, and I thought, what are they talking about? It was not yet the time, as it is now in Clifton and Defence, where people have their smartphones and they literally go into their own cocoon in a way. Don't you think so?
You're very right. You're very right.
And they're not actually communicating anymore. And so you have to look into people's faces, into their eyes, and to talk to them. So this we can still find in Liari, I think. But of course, when we just met at the launch, I said, yes, tea houses are male spaces. And I don't know enough about the culture, being a male researcher, about this female side of drinking tea. Maybe you can enlighten us a bit on that.
It's very difficult for me to think that sipping a tea would include gender also. But one good thing he said, that when you have a cup of tea, it is like petrol dalna. But what a wonderful petrol dalna is, that it calms you down. It makes you to reach to another person, to start a conversation that can turn into a dialogue, and that may turn into a discourse that can proceed further ahead. So this petrol is without fire. It has a lot of energy, but not that fire that can ignite all the differences and everything. I think what I see in Lahore and what I expect in Karachi, that women are also going to chai khanas, and they are also going to tea houses, and not only it's a segregated groups, but they are among the genders that we are coming in. I would love to tell you one thing, that I am one person who believes as human. I always say that I don't wish to live in a masculine world, and I don't wish to live in a feminine world. I wish to live in a human world. Let the teacup be a human sensitivity. Let it be. Why should it would be a zanana and mardana? We have gone very fond of these Anana Dabbas, but no more, no more. If we are talking of equity and equality, the tea should. But great thing that you write about the Iranian tea kiosks and Iranian tea shops, and I have seen few of them. Wonderful. One thing that tickles me that I'm going to share with you is that the Iranians and Afghanis and in some other Central Asian countries, they put a cube of sugar in their mouth and take a blend tea, which does not have any milk either with it. But in Iran, the sugar was coming from Russia. And as you have put the word, the godless Russia. The godless Russian sugar and a God-fearing Iran. So it has to be Islamicized. So they will dip the sugar first in the hot tea, so it is purified. And then they will put it in their mouth and drink it as a pure Muslim tea cube. These little things, they may appear to us very appeasing, but basically it's like minute observation, and then trying to find a meaning behind that observation, that why such a thing is being done. And then I really love when he talks about the ways of drinking tea. Somewhere they are taken into hot sips of tea, or like very tender kisses. And sometimes then it is slurped. Not slurped for lust, slurped to cool it down so that you enjoy every ingredient of it with the right temperature. Because people who live in this country, they know what temperature means. If you have everything at the same temperature, you will lose the flavor. You have to temper it down. You have to temper it down at the right time. But we tend to be more passionate about everything. And Jürgen plays his anthropological imagination and his observation into this. What would you say, Mr. Jürgen, about it?
Yes. One thing is, of course, a little bit so that you know it's about tea lovers in Pakistan, about what I called maybe bilkul chai shaukin ho. It's my passion to drink tea, definitely so. I can't do without.
बहुत शुक्रिया. जब हम लाउंज में बैठे थे तो मैंने इनसे गुजारिश की थी कि ये तो मानने की बात ही नहीं है कि आप उर्दू नहीं बोल सकते. जो चाय पीता है पाकिस्तान में वो उर्दू भी बोलता है.
ये तो मेरा काम तो ये है आपके पाकिस्तानी रस्म और रिवाज के बारे में, हमको उठने बैठने की तरीके के बारे में, ये हमारा फोकस है. लेकिन the book is not only on Pakistan, although that is based on a German edition published 3 years ago, but now I had the privilege to put more photographs from Pakistan into it. So it's rightfully the subtitle Among Tea Lovers. But it starts, as Dr. Arfa pointed out, in Morocco, and it travels. Then you can accompany me on a journey having tea in Marrakesh, then in Cairo, in Damascus, in Istanbul, in Iran, in Afghanistan. And the cover of the book is taken by an old friend of mine, taken in the 1950s, around close to the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and you would have the same picture going to Peshawar. And we should not forget we have the Kissa Khani Bazaar over there, and I found the last storyteller in a coffee shop and tea house in Damascus, in Sham, just short before the war started over there. So there are many facets of culture. When I started, I realized tea houses are aesthetic spaces, particularly in Iran, but also in Pakistan. It's still rural tea houses in Andarun Sindh. They can be painted. There can be folk paintings of peacocks, some folk sayings. The most beautifully painted tea houses we had in northern Afghanistan for a long time. Now I think they must have vanished, unfortunately, as well. There was music in tea houses. in northern Afghanistan, in Mazar-e-Sharif and Balkh, there were tea house orchestras by Turkmen and Uzbek people. The Uzbeks were very fond of singing and of doing music. So it was my intention to cover these different dimensions of the social habits of drinking tea. I didn't want to write another book, as there are so many introductions into tea drinking, starting in China, Japan, about the trade routes or the history of tea. There's a short chapter on the history of tea, but I realized that there were hardly any concise information available on having tea in the Muslim world between North Africa and South Asia. And so it was finding different sayings and listening to the people also, how they talk about having a strong tea, a tez chai, a karak chai, and then not very happy about if the tea is too weak, too thin, just a halki chai, just to use a polite term for that. There are many unpolite, rude terms as well, which you can find in the book if you like.
No, but the finesse that he uses, with every tea, sip of tea. And you will find a word in this book which says jawab chai. For a minute you think there might be some other drink. There might be some other drink that is coming. But if you do excuse me, I would love to tell you what this jawab chai is. It is the need to go to the toilets after having a lot of tea.
And Dr. Arfa, if I remember also the Afghan said, we love to fight, to go into struggle, but first we need to drink tea, then there's junk.
Yes, then chai. We may not be sitting that much for tea these days, we sit for dharnas, but the tea is served there too. Those sit-ins cannot be without teas. And one thing which I would love to mention is the visual side of this book. It is equally captivating. Each picture talks millions of words, and it gives you, and captures your imagination. And I would really love to ask Jürgen from you, and I'm taking the liberty to call him from his first name, because though we have not shared a cup of tea as yet, that how do you think that this drinking of tea is not a flow of a drink, but basically understanding a mindset in different cultures. And it is so amazing to read this book, that such a symbol and such a simple routine of every day drinking tea tells so much about each one of us.
It's an expression of identity also in a way, in many ways. Although we should be aware that it has reached this part of the world relatively late in the 19th century. I mean, tea was introduced since the 16th, 17th century in South Asia and the Middle East. But how could it replace what had been there before? There had been water and lassi, and herbal teas always were in use. But then that it got such a prominent way of sharing among people, that they got together. So there must be some driving force among the people in this part of the world to get together, who love to sit together. They love food equally. If I would have a disciple in anthropology, he should study the food in Punjab, for instance.
So you should also talk about the tea in Punjab. And if you excuse me, you know how that Punjabi language has the audacity to be extremely rude if they wish to be. And I come from that. There's a little joke about tea there, and do excuse me, but I would love to share with this vibrant audience. A little boy goes to a shopkeeper, and you must have heard this joke. And he asks, my mother is asking, do you have Lipton tea? I have translated tea, but in Punjabi it is cha. So if few people will follow the Punjabi thing is, he asked, मैं उर्दू में कहने की कोशिश करती हूँ, जर्गन भी फॉलो कर लेंगे कि अम्मा पूछती हैं लिप्टन की चाय है? उसका जवाब था कि बेटे मुझे तो बहुत है, पूछ के उसको है या नहीं. So the pun of the words, you will find many puns in here. And I thought he was being too kind to us, especially the Punjabis, to take away this joke from Lipton Ki Cha. The question is, as you said, that it is an identity question. And when I read this book, then I realized that how just sipping a cup of tea will be a symbol or an emblem of our etiquettes, of our hierarchies, of our choices, whether it should be if there is, in Lahore, if it is not a buffalo milk, the tea is not complete. And in Karachi, if there are more than 3 drops in a cup of milk in a tea, you have ruined everything. So, what I would really love to know, that this connection of human habits, human preferences, and human chronological understanding of a drink, this can only come to an anthropologist who weaves the stories in ethnography. Jürgen, please inform us something about it.
Should I read a small couplet? Because
Please
you
do.
mentioned that.
Please do. Not one, but many.
But I just want to answer that small what you said about Lipton tea. But what I came to know, tea is not only sipped at home among the family or in a tea house or in tea stalls and cafes, but also on board of trains. So there had been a tea boy recently named Akbar plying the Bolan mail between Karachi and Quetta. And he sings the following rhythmic ditty to attract the attention of passengers. ये कश्ती डूब जाएगी, किनारा नहीं मिलेगा, अकबर चला गया, तू चाय दोबारा नहीं मिलेगा. And I think an important chapter in the book is also about the rituals of hospitality. I remember a conference taking place, I think in Lahore or Delhi, and the lady, before saying salam, she said, does anybody need some more tea? That was the very first sentence, actually, before saying Assalamu alaikum. So, yes. And
the tea is hot, but it breaks the ice.
Yeah, exactly. And it is almost, there is the Persian saying, a guest is a friend of God, and water for tea is put on as soon as a guest enters the house. So it's really the most immediate thing you do. And there is that joke a Pakistani friend told me, a guest enters a house and the host asked, what would you like to drink, tea or fruit juice? The guest replied, juice before the meal and tea afterwards. So he himself invited for tea. And in Germany, a guest would be asked coffee or tea when he takes a seat, but a host here in South Asia, as soon as the guest crosses the threshold, he would be asked tanda ya garam or chai ya tanda or chai ya pani. And if the guest does not reply immediately, the host encourages him politely with the words, chai to chalegi. And these are the things I really loved, and that's so wonderful. I found, as you say, the visual side, teacups depicted on Afghan embroideries and on tapestries carpets also, yes.
Teapots and teacups on Afghan carpets.
And one thing maybe we should also not forget but that is more from a theoretical point of view.
Diwani chai.
Yeah, that's on the page, yes. But there is a distinction is made between two opposite qualities, as I mentioned earlier, as having a strong tea or a very mild or thin or weak tea. And if you allow a very short paragraph, I would read out about this.
For our pleasure.
Because we all love tea should be strong and good. So a Persian who drinks especially strong tea says to the waiter, "Bring me opium tea." However, if this coffee-colored tea is ordered without this explicit request and is found to be too strong and barely drinkable, the guest complains by saying, "I am not an opium smoker," or "This taste is like asphalt." In this case, a Pakistani tea drinker would say the waiter was trying to poison him, bringing him opium tea. But here too, in line with culturally defined patterns of taste, black tea with milk should indeed have a strong taste and a dark color. Often customers expressly request taste chai, strong or sharp tea, and karak chai, tea so strong that the sugar spoon can stand up in it. In The Buddha of Suburbia by Hanif Qureshi, the protagonist of the novel praises the tea as man's tea, top tea, good for erections. The customer can also order a truck driver wali chai, the trucker tea which keeps the driver, depending on how it is prepared, awake for 100, 250 or even 500 kilometers. Truck drivers in Uttar Pradesh in northern India order tea with the slang expression chai banao toke, chini barabar, meaning roughly, "Bring me a glass of tea so strong as if it had been stepped on and half filled with sugar." Farmers in the mountains of the Karakoram use an expression suggesting that the tea should be so thick and strong that a silver coin could not sink to the bottom. And a last sentence, that was a few years ago, I was strolling through the old part of Karachi with my companion Murtaza Karim boy, and he instructed the tea boy to be sure that the tea is ta karke, an onomatopoetic expression which reproduces the sound of a shot from a gun, meaning the tea should provide a kick like a shot. Yeah.
It's in certain villages, they do call it a goli chai. A goli chai. It should hit you like a bullet. Oh, thank you so much. I thought we were to finish at 2, but you are giving us... Thank you. Thank you so much. I would like you to read some more from it, especially that you promised that you would like to read something from Anwar Maqsood and
from
something.
Anwar Maqsood. I think this is a lovely...
Please do that. Please
of course. I mean, talking about the wonderful poet Anwar Maqsood from Lahore, his wit and humor is in Punjabi, yes. So putting it into translating it into English, one can only fail giving an idea, but there also, I'm not really used to Punjabi, I can only understand a bit. But he did a wonderful poem which belongs to the Munazara genre of poetry, which is well known in Arabic, in Persian, and in Turkic literature. And it's basically the subject of this genre is the contest between good and bad sides of different things. And so it's about a conversation between lassi and chai. This is about, and I think this is something you would love to hear. First, the lassi, the yogurt drink, addresses the tea and says, the lassi, "I'm beautiful, I'm fair-skinned, you are very dark. I help people to sleep. You, thou, keep people up all the night. And when I stir and shake and make waves inside the churn, then who is there who can withstand my coquetry and charm? My complexion is like that of butter, and my face lovely. Milk and cream are my mother and father. I'm high-born. I'm ready to die for one who sits down to churn me. When the drum beats, I do bhangra, sloshing from one side to the other. I make people healthy and robust while you make them ill. I cool the liver, lungs, and heart while you burn the chest." And of course it has to do with this concept of food and drink classified into hot and cold, what we had, or cold and damp in Punjabi. So now how does the tea respond to the disparaging remarks of the lassi, and how does the tea praise its own advantages. You are after me, older mother, making me waxed once more. I am the drink of intellectuals who drink me sip by sip. I live in the hearts of those who recognize my beauty. My dusky color makes me look as lovely as Laila. I make the body's aches disappear, uproot tiredness. I give solace and comfort to those who are freezing cold. You are the cause of coughing, catarrh, and cold. What else too? But one sip from me removes even the highest fevers. And please stay inside the churning pot. What is your problem if I'm seated at the high dining tables inside teacups? And I suppose these were in those days in Punjab, in the city of Gujarat, there were these very paper-thin clay teacups, which we find no more or hardly. And now we have these thick mugs.
Or the plastic cups.
Or the plastic.
To my horror, the plastic cups.
Plastic cups, exactly.
No more the clay cups. But I would really like you to read that where you talk about that thick layer of balai coming on tea and how some people love it. They will think that a tea without balai means that you have not given due honor to the guest.
Yes. So I'm not sure if we're going to find that so easily now. I was not...
you were not ready, that I would say.
Not ready for this paragraph. Well,
no problem, but whatever...
Have to look for that.
Any other paragraph that you would like to share, we'll do that. And then the question is that in certain areas, especially Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Quetta, tea is the basics of living and the basics of culture. Anybody, if you cannot offer a cup of tea, you are the most poor, poor, and people who do not know how to really entertain a guest. And especially tea, people keep on saying that we don't need tea. It means they will need tea more and more. Each time they refuse, so you have to give more. Any other except that you would like to?
And I think also having tea is some kind of resistance to this hurried pace of time, the hectic times we live in. And if we sit down to have a cup of tea, it means we have time. One should not sip tea while standing also. One should not even eat while standing. These are all the ugly faces of globalized 21st century culture. So we should take time.
Yes.
This is important.
We should take time because you cannot simply gulp down a tea and that would be considered as rude. To your host or to your company. I can talk about tea as much as, because I have gone fond of tea much more than I was already after this book, and I will request from dear audience if you have any questions, please. Sure. Please, two questions are on this side.
Amongst the Afghans, one of the main cultural part of tea is when you finish your tea, you must turn your cup upside down. If you do that, that means thank you very much, I don't need any more. But if you do, then leave your cup open.
Thank you so much.
I don't know whether it's still continuing.
No, more so in Iranian culture, I think.
And it has to
Jürgen,
be three cups of tea at least. 3 cups of tea at least. This is also like a motive running through. 3 cups of tea, and then you are served more and more. And finally, if you have no chance to, then you turn it on.
Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum. I wanted to ask you, when you went all over Pakistan and you interacted with the people over there, what was, because the general impression of someone like you would be, Gora aa gaya, you know, a white man has come into our land. So what was their reaction? How did they interact with you? And how was it so easy for you to, you know, just sit with them, have a cup of tea? How were they so welcoming?
You see, speaking broken Urdu in a sort of broken Urdu, that makes me sometimes quite similar to some, at least, some Pathans. Or in like Karachi, they say, you must be Pathan, or are you from Kashmir or Iran or somewhere. So it's not always so obvious. So they are not sure who I am. So then, if I see these bits, these eyes, so they're a bit questioning myself, where could he come from? So that's wonderful to enter into a discussion then. I had no difficulties at all. They are very open.
There's a question by that gentleman here.
And one thing more, also when we talked about women, at least also in Karachi tea houses, even if women are marginalized, sometimes they get a seat on the edge of a tea house at least. So the shopkeeper realizes there is a lady who walked through the bazaar doing the shopping, she is tired, so she is allowed to sit there. But hopefully women are getting more space in tea houses.
Very interesting discussion. I think not. एक सवाल जो मैंने पूछना था वो एक लेडी ने वहाँ से पूछ लिया कि प्याले को हरकत देने की कोई लैंग्वेज the language, how you mention, have you mentioned the action of bowl in your book?
Of
the piala?
Yes.
In your book.
Drinking from the saucer, you mean? That?
No, the cup without a handle.
The piala.
Lot many pialas are there.
Yeah, especially I saw them among fakirs during the melas and the urs.
It is mentioned in your book?
There's a photograph and it's mentioned in the book. There
is another thing. Do you mention the brown sugar in tea?
Yeah, of course, the gur definitely.
Gur.
It has to be.
Gur.
It all depends on the quality of the quality of milk.
In Balochistan, it is taken for small amount of gur.
Yes, you're also finding some names of tea houses in Quetta, at least. Yeah.
Yes, please.
I've read Lacar, who I consider to be John Le Carre, whom I consider to be somebody who makes unfamiliar familiar very quickly, or Adam Gopnik, who sort of adds some sort of an epiphany into his writing, into smallest observations. You've done it very well in this book. How did you come across that?
I'm an ethnographer down to the core since my youth here, so this is just the training of the eye and of the attention to be sensitive to everyday culture. In '87, I wrote a book in Germany about everyday behavior in Pakistan. So in that way, I was already starting to become attentive to such kind of expressions of daily life. But this is,
The last question, I think.
Yes. To add a feather to the cap, a cup of tea sometimes should be like, it should be labrez, it should be labdoz, and it should be labsoz.
Thank you so much. Maulana Abul Kalam Azad.
This is also
Maulana Abul Kalam Azad used to say that it should be labrez, labdoz, and labsoz. And because he was taking the tea without milk, and Nehru used to take the tea with milk. And so Maulana Abul Kalam Azad said that it is labrez, labdoz, labsoz, and labdhad. So thank you so very much, Jürgen. I think the people for the next session are already pouring in, though there is still some time. I would like to ask you, okay, go ahead, please.
My name is What was the source of motivation you got to write on this book?
Your motivation for writing on
the source of motivation, I mean...
you mentioned one thing also, that before 3 years, there was some book or the teacup. But what was again the source of motivation? You come up with that you wrote this book.
I have to repeat it myself. It's a sense of curiosity, still exploring and discovering things in Pakistan, and a kind of sensitivity to tea, especially. I came when I started first coming to Pakistan at the age of 25 or 26. I was still drinking coffee in those days, way back in Germany, but it ruined my stomach. So I changed to drinking tea, and I saw that it's such a basic commodity, and it's such an important ingredient of life here, such important part of life, and we should pay attention to it.
Thank you so much, Jürgen. I might have failed somewhere to explain that he's an anthropologist and an ethnographer. What else motivation could be there? This is an enough motivation. I can't thank you enough for your time and for your lovely book. And thank you very much for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you.